Hey guys, Drew here with an instructional that many of you have requested, and this is how to level the frets on your guitar. How do you do it? What tools you need to do it? And very importantly, I just want to say that this approach that I'm going to be discussing is the business perspective. In other words, what knowledge and skills do you need to be able to do this job and be compensated for it? So that is what we're going for, and at the very least, not have to pay somebody else to do it for you. So here's what we want to start off with. I just want to say I've spent several years learning this, and if you want to show if this works for you, if you would like to show me some support, that would be great. You can subscribe. You can like the video. You can like my page, Rose Guitars, on Facebook. You could, heck, even send me a donation to my PayPal. And if you're interested in making a generous donation, you could send that to roseguitarfix@gmail.com. That's ROSE guitarfix@gmail.com. Anyway, let's get to it. So we're just going to go tool by tool. Here, this beauty right here is a fret rocker. It does two things. It tells us which frets are taller than others, or if we might have some uneven frets. And it spans 3 frets on any given part of the guitar. The other thing that this does, the other purpose, is that it identifies whether or not frets might be loose. And put an asterisk there, because for a lot of people, loose frets are the missing variable separating a great job from a bad one. The next tool that I'm going to be using is an offset diamond crowning file, 150 grit. It has a jumbo side and a medium side. You can get these from StewMac. They're about $130. They're out there. They're out there for cheaper, but StewMac makes the best one. These are about $30, by the way. Anyway, next thing I've got is my leveling beam, which is an amazing tool. It's going to be doing more than just leveling the frets. It's going to be one of the secret ingredients. By the way, I'm not going to be keeping any secrets from you guys. This is everything that you need to know, and do it right. So yeah, these are about $40. It's got a fine side, and then it has a coarse side. Here I've got a hand file that people use. I made this myself, but sometimes I use this. It just depends on the job. I got a roll of tape to protect our fretboards, and I've got a knife to cut the tape, and a Sharpie to mark the frets. Lastly, here I've got some super thin StewMac super glue, and it's amazing. It's one of those secret ingredients that you don't get told a lot about. So this is how to use it, and we're gonna be using it some. Be showing you how to use that in conjunction with everything else to have a perfect job. Anyway, let's get to the guitar. Alright, so here we have our Fender Strat. Shout out to the Fender Stratocaster Player Group and Daryl, the owner. Thanks for letting me do this, man. Anyway, so what we've got here, our frets have been marked, right? This is all I did to do that. So I marked the tops of each fret. So every single fret has been marked on the top of it. And what this does, a lot of people say, hey, what this does is it allows you to see how much more material you need to remove, because in theory, if there's a little divot right here from fret wear, the marker, the Sharpie, will be visible in that one tiny little spot because it's lower than the rest of the frets. And yeah, it's great for that, but it also allows us to see what we're doing. It allows us to see how our neck is sitting. We're gonna make sure our neck is straight, not just with our eyes, but with our leveling beam. How about that? Here's how we do it. Step number 1, ensuring the neck is perfectly straight for this job. The most important step right at this point. Making sure it's straight. It looks straight to my eye, but how do I know it's straight enough to do the work right? So here's what I do. I've got the frets marked, and I've got the fine side of my leveling beam here. And what I'm going to do is put the beam in the middle of the neck, and I'm going to swipe the fingerboard. I'm going to swipe the frets. So if you noticed, what I've done is I've kept the beam parallel to the center of the neck. I don't go like this, I don't go like that. I keep it parallel to the center of the neck using the fret marking dots as my guide. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? But it needs to be essentially parallel. Alright. So that little amount of work I just did tells me a lot about how this neck is sitting. Check it out. I've removed a lot of the marker from the tops of these frets at the bottom, right? But as I progress up, I'm missing virtually every single bit on the middle frets. And then when I come down here, I'm starting to, you can see where I've removed some material right here. So what does that say? That says that there is a very mild bow in the neck. If these frets are getting hit down here and these are getting hit down here, then there is a bow. Conversely, if these frets aren't getting hit and these frets aren't getting hit and all of these frets are getting hit, that means that there is a back bow in the neck. So what I'm going to do at this point is tighten the neck. Just a little bit. Because it doesn't have enough tension. So here I am, I'm making my adjustment here. I put about a quarter of a turn on the truss rod. And then I'm going to check my work. I'm going to swipe again. I'm looking at my frets, and I see that I made some contact in the middle here. Obviously I made some contact down here. For beginners, it would be wise to just say, okay, well, we'll mark these frets one more time before we make another truss rod adjustment, because we want to see exactly what is going on. Because if we overshoot our truss rod adjustment and we put too much tension on the neck where it back bows, this will tell us, and we won't be making mistakes. That's very crucial. So I'm going to make my adjustment again. Give it another swipe. And so now I'm looking at the frets, and generally speaking, most of them have been touched, but I want to do it just a little bit more. We're going to put just a little bit more on there, because there's still some frets that are barely getting touched. Alright. And looking at it, looks pretty good. You can tell there's a low spot right there, whereas this part's kind of high. You can see that there's kind of like a high spot right here, but that part's kind of low where this part's high. And so what I see here is that for the most part, they're pretty level. Looks decent. I'm gonna make just one more adjustment. Just a tad. And now we're set. Check it out. Now I'm looking good. I'm looking good to continue the leveling process. So, just so you guys know, in this part of the video, we're just assuming this guitar doesn't have any loose frets. We're gonna assume that all the frets in this guitar are perfectly seated and tight. And here I am, just leveling. And what I'm doing is I'm looking, right? I'm looking at the work. I can see some marker on this fret. I see some marker on this fret. I see just a little bit here. I mean, it's not bad. For the most part, it's looking pretty good. You see that marker there on the 13th fret. So I do it some more. Still see a little bit here. All right. Now for our next step. Crowning. We're going to take this file right here. Like I said, there's two sides. What I do is I find the side of the file that makes contact with the top of the fret first. And what I mean by that, depending on the width of the fret wire you're grinding, this side might do it faster than this side. So whichever side does it faster is the one I work with, which means it fits it right, fits it properly. Here's the part where people get really confused. They're like, how do I know when enough is enough? Well, I'm about to show you. So what we want to do is we want to start off on the first fret. We want to take our crowning file. I'm not having to hold it any special way. I'm just holding it so that way it's secure, trying not to rock it this way or that way so it doesn't grind the wood. Alright, check it out. It's kind of hard to see. There's somewhat of a glare. But what you're going to be noticing is that there's still some flat line. There's still, see this area right here that's kind of, this area right here is still flat right here, trying to work the glare in my favor. But you want to make sure there's no flat line anywhere. And you can see it disappear, just slowly disappear. And boom. The flat line has been completely erased from the crown. I now have a perfectly round crown. And so I just progressively I go up the neck. Check it out. Let's see. There's a good view of it. So you can see right here the crowning file has actually erased the line, but right here that flat line, and from here that flat line is still there. Check it out, it's going to disappear. See, it got smaller, smaller, and now it's gone. Except I still have plenty of flatness on this part right here. That glare is showing it. And basically I'm just kind of putting the weight of my hand on that flat area. I'm kind of keying in, focusing in on that flat area on the fret, and now we're good. It's perfectly round. That flat line disappeared. And so we'll do this the entire length of the neck. Boom. Fast, easy with this file. It is a breeze. Alright, so we're just going to imagine that we've done this to every single fret. We got rid of that line that's on there. You'll see it getting smaller. It'll just shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink until, boom, it's just a nice round area. Alright, so let's imagine that we have done this to all of our frets. They're all crowned. Now what? Well, alright, so let's move on to polishing. Pretty easy. We take our tape and we put it right up next to the fret. You've probably seen this before. Nothing special about it. And what we do is we tape up the entire fretboard. But I'm going to be taping up a segment, so that way we can do this quickly. And I can explain exactly how to do it without having to go through the entire process. Here it is. Alright, so we're going to imagine the entire fretboard is ready. So, sandpaper. What I like to use is a combination of grits. Here's what I like. I like to get on the edge of the frets. I fold the paper and I get on the edge of the frets, the sides of the frets, because the file will leave tooling marks and chatter marks on the sides. And if you want a professional business job, then you gotta have these frets looking nice. So yep, easy. And then I'll sand the top of the fret. Not a whole lot, but enough. Enough to where the scratches, the deeper scratches, have been removed. So when this whole thing is taped up, I like to go like this. After every side of the frets, all the sides have been polished, then I go like this. You can start off with 500, 600 grit, and then I move to 800 grit, then 1000 grit, then 1200 grit, and then what I like to do is I like to take one of these 3M sanding pads, 3000 grit, and if you have an orbital sander, you can stick it on there, and it'll polish it really nice and quickly. I'm just using my hand. Works that way too. And so now it looks pretty dang good, and your frets will look really, really nice. If they look scratchy, then they're gonna be scratchy. If they look smooth like a mirror, then they'll play that way. It's just a matter of starting with a lower grit, 600, and working your way up. It is important to go horizontally, by the way. It's important to go horizontally and vertically. That's going to give you your best polish. Next thing I do is I take some 3M rubbing compound. It's like 10 bucks. And I just put a little bit on the frets. And I take my Dremel tool with a buffing wheel, and I polish them. Now, I will say, when I was using my sandpaper on these nickel frets, I was able to get away with just by using 1,000 grit from Harbor Freight and just, you know, taking my time with it and getting it right. But with stainless steel, you gotta work a little bit harder at it. It's gonna take a little bit longer. You definitely have to use a progression of grits. You can't just use steel wool, and you can't just use steel wool when you've just used a diamond file on your frets. You gotta step up, progressively sand, and then at that point, you're good. You'll be ready to play because you've ensured that the neck is straight with your leveling beam and not some other tool. That leveling beam is seriously one of the secret weapons. So that's how you do your basic fret leveling, guys. Very easy. So let's move on to the secret stuff. Alright guys, for a lot of you, this is going to be the most important part of the video. So this step is a necessary step for pretty much every guitar. We didn't go through it with our first example because, like I said, we assumed that it didn't have any loose frets, but check this one out. This one has loose frets everywhere. Here's how I know. I take my fret rocker, and guess what? It rocks. It rocks on this fret. Just for rocking. That means this fret right here is tall. But check it out. If I put some weight on it, I'm talking about 10, 15 pounds of pressure, it doesn't rock anymore. That means that this fret, when I press down on it, is slipping right back into the socket, into the fret slot, i.e. this fret is loose. So here's what we do. I'm taking some beeswax, and I'm going to place it on the sides of the fret right here, making sure to get up as close as possible without sealing the fret in. Then that will help protect the wood. You can use a grease, you can use paste wax, you can use Vaseline if you want to, but check this out. Here's a razor blade. What I do is I stick this razor blade underneath that fret, and very carefully I slide it along, trying to keep that tip of that razor blade underneath that fret. And I go all the way down, and hey, guess what? When you look at it, doesn't look any different. Can't even tell I did anything. Then I'll go down the other side. Just making sure that's the right one. So I'll go down the other side. Now granted, you can't do this exact technique with all guitars. If you have a thick finish and you have an American Strat, chances are you don't have loose frets. If you have a PRS, chances are you don't have loose frets by the nature of how they install their frets with super glue. But if you have a less expensive guitar, even maybe a Studio Les Paul even, chances are if you can't get good results, you got loose frets, man. Diagnose it. Fix it. So here we go. What I've done is I made sure that I can get this junk, this amazing sauce right here, make sure that it's going to take. And what I mean by take is, well, just watch. Maybe it'll pick it up here. So this super glue, we're going to take it and check it out. It seeps right into the fret slot. Look at it, it just disappears. And so there's going to be a little bit of excess here. And very carefully, very quickly, you're going to need to wipe it away with a cloth. And so here it goes, it wipes away. But check it out. You can still see it. You can still see a little bit of the residue here. And what you do to clean that up, you take your razor blade and you just scrape it right up, and hey, check it out. Peels off like dead skin. See that? There it is, hanging around. Just hanging around. And it comes right off because we put that wax on there. Look at that. There it is. And it's gone. There's still a little bit more residue here and there. But we just take this razor blade, kind of angle it downward, being careful not to scratch the wood, and we just pick it off. And then we'll glue the other side. And then we'll clean it. What you can do with this rosewood board is clean it with some steel wool. But yeah, you want to wax it first. And so now, if we do that to all the frets, we'll go back and double check it. And now when we press down, our fret rocker still rocks. Even when I'm really pressing down on it, it's still rocking. That means that fret is now seated. It's glued. It ain't going nowhere. Do that to all of them. Repeat the steps. Go through the steps that I showed in the first part of the video, and you are going to have a perfectly level fret job. So yeah, no secrets, no hiding anything. This is years of knowledge that I've worked really hard to achieve. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully this will help you guys out. Peace.